This is, I guess, quote unquote, episode 1.5. And I'm going to continue reading the book. So, at the age of 12, I did a very outrageous thing for one so young. One morning, I ran away from home to follow a Baba. 4 days and a few thousand kilometers later, I returned home without much insight into either his or my own quest. Upon my return home, I thought it best that I wait a few more years until I could stand on my own feet and feel safe in the outside world. While the God searching project was still fermenting inside me, I collected bits and pieces of information about how to know or meet God. On one occasion, my brother told me there was something called yoga, by the practice of which I could come to know the unknowables of the universe. Its practitioners were known to have supernatural capacities and almost godlike qualities. I began to cook up my own image of what a yogi would look or behave like. Then, unexpectedly, one day as I was browsing through my new school textbooks, I came across a chapter entitled Yogi Aurobindo. And that's a different author, and he has his own collections of works, and I believe one of his popular books is The Synthesis of Yoga. So that's within the tradition of, what, Sanatana Dharma has kind of surmounted up to what the culture of India kind of is in a more hidden sense as well, in the deeper sense, because there's a lot of rich culture within India, right? They're harboring yoga traditions, experiences, and stories, and they're showcasing them in early India, 1900s, right? We got fucking, what do you call that fucker? What's that fucker's name? Yogananda, right? And then Sri Aurobindo, right? And then Ramakrishna is one of them, and then Sankaracharya is another one. There's a lot of these priestly gurus that made a significant impact to the modern Sanatana Dharma tradition, right? There's also yogi. There's also a couple other ones. Immediately, I read away the whole chapter and felt inspired by what I had understood. However, what broke my heart was the fact that he was no longer alive to teach me how to be a real yogi. A few months later, I came to know that Yogi Aurobindo had established an ashram in Pondicherry where his students were available to teach yoga. And perhaps that might be Pondicherry, that might be referring to India. He doesn't give that explanation where Pondicherry is, but I fairly assume Pondicherry could be in India. It was not until a few years later that my first stop in search of superconsciousness was Pondicherry. This is where I started my first practice of what I then called yoga. Every morning at 7 a.m., about 20 aspiring yogis assembled in a large hall and gaped in awe at the instructor as he twisted. So I'm living up to my own yogi hype too, because obviously yoga has a lot of respective hype, but I'm doing this for my pure yoga path. And there's a big difference between that and mainstream yoga, most respectively. And that mainstream yoga, it just, that's just what 3D needs to do, right? No judgment. That's just what it needs to do, right? it Every morning at 7 a.m., about 20 aspiring yogis assembled in a large hall and gaped in awe at the instructor as he twisted, turned, and gyrated himself into fantastic shapes, which he called yogasanas. He called them yogasanas. It appeared as though he had worked in a circus in his early life, as he presented a spectacular exhibition of movements which we were all painstakingly requested to follow. So I'm following up on my own yogi hype. And we got to see the difference of how the world commercializes and demonizes yoga and how it's a whole different, deeper, literal, purer tradition, right? So if we don't fucking draw that line, then yoga will be used distortedly to demonically. No judgment. That's just the reality of the esoteric science of the shit, right? So people like, if you're hating on me, you're lacking critical intelligence up the heezy while I'm providing the solution of intelligence. So that's just like, it's like a dut da da on a whole different level. Every now and then, it appeared as though he had worked in a circus in his early life. As he presented a spectacular exhibition of movements which we were all painstakingly requested to follow. Every now and then he would come closer to me and express his displeasure at my ways of twisting and turning. So a harsh teacher critic, perhaps. He would grab and twist my limbs and explain how important it was to bend in the exact manner in which he demonstrated. So it's like, you got to choose your teachers wisely. And that's a different understatement, right? After weeks of such an ordeal, I asked him, in what way are these asanas of benefit to me? He answered, the asanas, if done correctly, could give relief from so many different diseases and ailments. He went on to give me what he called a brief list of some high-sounding diseases and how I could get rid of them by doing these asanas. I became thoroughly confused as I had the notion that yoga would take me closer to God. Surely anything as serious as finding God should have a process far more respectable than performing mere physical exercises, ? Besides, I had not come all the way to Pondicherry just to do some exercises to get rid of diseases. With such notions in mind, I began to dislike the exercise class and was mounting a growing resistance towards the whole yoga system. When I declared my intention to quit, the instructor advised me to meet a certain yogi to help clear my misconception about the exercises. And like, it is what it is. There's also a notion of surrender too, of like, you know, where yoga is going, right? There's also like, there has to be some like balance of surrender, but balance of like, I guess, pure policy, respectively. But that's beyond like, just like, individuals sometimes. A kind elderly man began to explain, but it is what it is, right? So I'm just like, we should just be happy we get to partake type of shit is what, life will tell us. A kind elderly man began to explain that good health was the path to God since our body is the home of God. Whoa. He declared that I should continue with the exercises so that someday I would come to realize some divine truth. He further explained that the exercises were also an integral part of the yoga system, and without practicing them, I would never come closer to God. He advised me to attend his own lectures. I took his advice and started to attend his lectures and discourses, at the same time continuing with the yoga exercise classes. I think I skipped a paragraph, excuse me. When I declared my intention to quit, the instructor advised me to meet a certain yogi to help clear my misconceptions about the exercises. It wasn't long before again I started to question the integrity of my practice. My confusion and consequent query was which one of these two teachers would come to know God. One of the teachers performed a lot of exercises and obviously knew very little about the philosophy of yoga. And what I'm coming to realize is the philosophy of yoga, that's a different understatement as well, right? Because we can't get lost in the word philosophy. If we get lost in the word philosophy, like the human intellect doesn't realize it's a shallow surface level thing, the word. But I respect what it points to, right? So like, I'm clearing up a misconception with the advanced intelligence. To actually quote unquote for real on one corner of the fucking yoga to for real perfect the yoga. So that's the difference between me and every fucking yoga teacher. There's a fucking real Jnani, Glani yoga, intellect yoga, Buddha, Bodhi yoga, for real perfecting the yoga. by bringing that real shit that your yoga teacher's not doing. So you can't compare it on the surface level fucking bullshit, on the surface level artificial bullshit, without seeing the different energy works that were already put in past lives. So that's why none of you yoga teachers really have shit on me on the real professional perfect comparison, respectively, for the fucking advanced scholarly academics of yoga. But if you want to do some original perfect comparison, then be brave and actually follow your ironic fucking hypocritical yoga principles and actually follow up and be honest and brave and do some real energetic neutral dharma, meaning live out your purpose. Be bold, be authentic, be raw, be you type of shit, right? And looky, and quote, and I'm not hating on Whole Foods. I'm just saying, like, wow, look at that. They're in some pocket pivot of opportunity for them to somehow commercialize this shit. And maybe may I adjust my perception to respect, the passing of that somehow, right? So that's why I'm saying balanced Neptunian courts beyond just what the fuck is he saying type of shit, right? That's a whole, it's one of those understatement things, right? The other appeared to know a lot about the philosophy, but never seemed to do any exercises. So one was doing the exercises, no philosophy. One was doing the philosophy, no exercises. Which one's right or wrong? None of them's right or wrong. That's just where they're at within the fucking yoga of their subjective fucking shit. The other appeared to know a lot about the philosophy, but never seemed to do any exercises. So this book is actually like, chapter 1's, okay, chapter 1 is, oh my god. Chapter 1 is 52 pages, and within scrolling through all of those 52 pages, casually they will always bring up the Gita, and people bring up the Gita so casually, right? We don't have to concentrate some seriousness within someone mentioning the Gita, or we don't have to conjure up some misconception. It's a more neutral thing of a sacred foundational text that paved the way to this shit, and now people could try to like represent it in just a weird way or not, without them realizing it, right? They could try to like academicalize it in such a way, or they could just kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? They could try to like, it's like, it seems like some people could just like misrepresent the authority of it, right? So people, there's beyond just Hinduism, people could misrepresent the fanaticism of religion. There could be fanatical religious representations within any religion, right? So this is advanced critical thinking. I don't think 2025 or 2026 I don't think the geopolitical intelligence understands that, because there's too many blemishes of distortion that we have to heal. And there's not a sobering up of the real reality within the mainstream media. So it's just like the intelligence, it's very immature in 2026, respectively. It's very immature. So this is 52 pages. I'm on page 13. And soon I will like go to like a library and finish this chapter.